Yeah,
Okay.
so it's one of those things, I can't remember what part of like evolutionary science it is, but it's like that thing where if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And then there's that other what adage or phrase that I love, you are what you eat. So, and I think that goes with what you eat mentally too. So that's other things that I've always kept in mind. Like I truly do believe that like sitting there watching a screen, like watching TV, like literally destroys your ability to have dreams. Like I truly do believe that because I talk to so many people who say, "Oh, I don't have any dreams. I don't remember my dreams." I'm like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I play video games or watch TV for this amount of hours." It's like, "Oh shit." It makes me wonder if that whole conspiracy with like television and screens and stuff was like deliberately stopping the slaves, the oppressed workers from having dreams, instead fill their heads full of ad slogans and pop culture.
I think it's beyond dreams, DB. I think it's imagination really that they destroy.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, dreams. It's a very personal thing. I think a study of dreams is, and dreams is part of us. And dreams is there even if you don't remember them. If you measure somebody asleep, you see that he is dreaming actually, and probably doesn't remember them. And that not remembering could be caused by external factors too and distraction. But it's the imagination. Yeah, absolutely. The screens, but the books too, in a certain way. I shouldn't say that because I'm a book. I read a lot, but the what Gary was saying about the appearance of books and the appearance of printing at 15th century and in 16th century, the beginning of Renaissance and Enlightenment and commerce and industry, people started to read and forgot about the oral transmission. And going south was talking about um, teaching our young ones, but our young ones were taught before that by well, there was written books, all right, but they were taught by listening to their elders where they were working or in the evening around the fire or by storytelling or by so the imprint of this sort of teaching was much more powerful than when it was just picked up in a book or in a school. I don't know why I'm talking about this. I've forgotten the thread of what we were saying. Go on.
No, it's a
Oh, that's
it's a
great.
very important point. I think the crisis of imagination. Possibly we could do that as an entire other discussion at another meeting. I think. But I don't know. I mean, like reading books, I think you could argue that it's a great encouragement to use your image. I mean, if you're reading something in a book, you've got to create the entire scene in your head, and that's your imagination. Um, that's that's got to produce this, remarkable 3D panoramic, high definition, whatever you want it to be. Uh, so whilst the story might be being given to you, the entire representation of it is an imaginative process that the reader's got to generate for themselves. Um, but yeah, probably it's also a crisis. The crisis of imagination can also be seen now, of course, in the predicament that humanity's in. And obviously, there's a large number of people simply can't grasp it. They can't imagine it. And so they're discounting the importance and severity of it.
I'd like to say about dreams, Gary, because I think everyone who's ever had a dog or a cat has experienced that they are dreaming. They're very much dreaming, and sometimes you can see them almost running, running in their basket while dreaming, right? So I'm just thinking that if you have if you have a dog that has been dreaming and wakes up, uh, doesn't that dog then have consciousness about consciousness? Because the dreaming is a conscious thing, and when it wakes up and realizes that these other dogs or these wolves that it was dreaming about, or these cats, they're not there, so he doesn't have to run away from them or chase them anymore when he opens his eyes. So doesn't that mean that this dog has consciousness about consciousness? And I'm asking about this particular thing because the ability to dream was one of these top 10 things that humans used to say for centuries, that this is only humans can do this, until someone else finds out that this is not right, because dogs do it, giraffes do it, elephants do it, and cats do it.
It reminds me of that song. There's an old song. Can't think of how it goes now. Even the monkeys in the trees do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Yeah, I think what the dog is, or the dreaming dog is doing, uh, is still the same as it would be doing if it was awake and walking around. It is aware and responding to. It has consciousness or awareness of what's going on. It's responding to that, but it's not reflecting upon its awareness of the fact that it's aware of that. It's the layer above that that's still not there. So the dog will have a dream, and from the dog's point of view, it's registering that as an experience that's occurring for it.
Yeah,
And
but my question is, when it wakes up,
yeah.
when it wakes up and realizes that these wolves chasing it are not there, he's just lying in his basket. So won't he then have a consciousness about having been conscious when he was sleeping? So
See, the
that
thing is, look, I can't stand on my pulpit and say how this is, because I can't know the dog's experience. Like everybody else, you can only observe and kind of try and work out what you think might be happening. I mean, we can't even do that with other human beings, really. That you might even realize that another person's processes are near enough to identical to your own, but you've got to be extremely wary about saying that you understand what's going on inside their head.
No, but I base it only
So
on observation, because
yeah, but I mean the dog,
if
well,
the dog was making running movements with his feet or something, which some dogs do when they dream about running, then when it opens his eyes, he knows that the running situation was a dream, so he is conscious about having dreamt, and he can then reflect upon having dreamt this was only a dream. These wolves are not real. I can just relax and turn over to the other side and sleep on. That's my question.
yeah, well, I mean, that could be what's happening. I'm more inclined to think that it simply wakes up and the stimulation is not there and the event is gone. It's rather like you you might be out with your dog and throwing a ball, but you just suddenly remove the ball. And for a short time, the dog is aware that something's gone missing and that we were playing ball, but it's just not there anymore. And it's not that the dog is sort of having a internal cogitation about where the hell the ball's gone and what's going on. It's simply a run on of the state that it was in while you were playing with the ball, and it's not there. And um, I mean, it's like everything you do. If you stop it suddenly, there's a tendency for the preceding event to have created a certain momentum in your mind, in your brain, which carries on. But I don't know if that is the same thing as the dog thinking that, I was having a dream and it's not there anymore. It could just be a kind of a mental, a few moments of mental momentum that kept operating, even though the stimulus was removed. I mean, I can't. Um, I'm quite happy to admit I can't substantiate my. I'm not trying to prove my position or anything. It's quite possible. What you're saying is every bit as valid
Well,
observation.
well, I can sort of give an observation because I have a dog too. My impression of what's going on in a dog psyche is they're geared toward the immediate. So when my dog has a dream of running around and he wakes up, immediately he wants to grab the ball that's in front of him or go drink water. It doesn't seem to dwell too much on the dream. So it's probably like leaping from one reality to another without, much effort because the dream was probably a different reality. And then boom, waking reality. Oh, there's these things. Oh, there's this smell. The dog doesn't seem to linger too much on the dream, even though they dream.
No,
Yeah,
I think that was
I've
more or
noticed
less my point. Was that there could be a little bit of running on of the dream, the effect of the dream, but it would fade off. Whereas in human beings, it persists for a very long time because we're able to reflect upon it, and so we keep it alive. We keep it
I
sort of
don't think it's only
artificially
that,
going.
Harry. I don't think it's only that. I think it's also that what DB was saying, and it's really right. The dog has the ability to be in the present. He's free of the past and the future. He lives totally in the moment. Actually, when you train a dog, there's no point in giving out to a dog. He's done something and you discover it 10 minutes after or more. It's just in the
It's
moment.
too late. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's right.
I
But I
think
mean, this is
it's
our blessing and our
on our
curse
curse,
because,
exactly.
yeah, you see, we can choose to live in the past and relive it with it. And of course, you can see what people do. They relive their traumas. This is where all the problems of paranoias and phobias and everything. It can be a very damaging thing, or it can be a very useful thing. If you want to sit down and write a book on a particular subject, well, it's really handy to be able to go back and I guess that links back to what we were saying earlier about the misuse of a tool that we have
Yes, absolutely. But to
within
come back to
ourselves.
dogs and consciousness, there was I read years ago a book about a study on dogs who perceive death at a distance of an owner or somebody that they were very close to. And there was enormous examples and stories going back to the beginning of the previous century to now. So the numbers were enormous in the study, and that the dogs could perceive the owner had died at the moment he died, when they were really miles, if not hundreds of miles away. Now there is a lot of explanations, but nobody has ever come with anything because we're in the realm of things that cannot be studied by science. But this experience has put in my mind this what's this connection that dogs have with the universe that
Yeah,
wouldn't be conscious? Wouldn't they be connected to the consciousness in a different way that we are? And it's not by trying to compare and saying, oh, we are conscious and aware and dogs are not. Their connection is on a different level that we are, because we have actually obviously severed eye connection in a big way. This it's not so clear. It's not so clear cut, this human thing and animal, and that we all are conscious. I think the different nature, consciousness of a different nature, but definitely the connection of animals is something to observe. I'm looking at my one actually. He was eating something he shouldn't. I just have to leave a second.
Yeah, well, the connection is very real because, like, if there's one thing, I mean, if there's one thing that evolutionary biology is confirmed, it's that we have animal ancestors. If you take human ancestors and you go back far enough, you'll find a common ancestor between dogs and humans, or at least wolves and humans, because that was like the forebears of dogs. But yeah, and then you go even farther back, and then you get um the bridge between mammals and reptiles, and you go back and then you get all the way back to the fish, and then you look at how the brain evolved, and then it's stacking all those on top of the fish layer. So it's yeah, it's really all connected together. It makes me wonder if there's not only like, I don't know, a collective unconscious for every species, but like a super conscious collective unconscious for all the species. Something like that, I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Sophie, what she was saying a minute ago is I think it was Rupert Sheldrake. It has done some experiments with. She was talking about, if a animal's owner dies and the dog uh, becomes aware of it, and I think Rupert did experiments with uh, uh, dogs expecting their owners to arrive home, and that he conducted various uh, variations of this experiment of having the owner arrive home unexpectedly, and the dog might have been alone, but they kept the camera on the dog all of the time to see if they could determine any change in its behavior and all the rest of it. And I think what I was listening to was fairly preliminary, but it seemed that what he was observing fairly consistently was that pretty near every time, if the owner was about to arrive home unexpectedly and the animal was kept strictly isolated from any physical cues, possible reasons to expect, that they did actually know that they did actually know that the owner was on the way home and was going to arrive. So it's just sort of a little bit of a connection back to what Sophie was saying, and of course, I think possibly human beings could do pretty good at a thing like that too, but uh, I think we're occupied with a lot of busyness and clutter and chatter in our heads all the time. It probably blocks our sensitivity to that kind of thing. And maybe you could argue that people who are good at keeping quiet internally might also be good at um, extrasensory, so-called extrasensory abilities.
Yeah, it's all the same thing about synchronicities and stuff. When you're able to connect and to be quiet enough, you probably do pick up things. And I have in my life felt things at certain times, and I never told anybody because I thought they'd lock me into a mental hospital asylum. But I know from experience that I have felt and sensed death or other things at a distance. So I'm totally accepted that the dogs have this real direct line with the whole thing, and other animals probably, maybe plants too, and probably do trees and all sorts of other creatures and that we don't even know about. Maybe rocks, maybe water. Who knows?
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember though how long ago this Extinctionati talk was, but I remember when we were all talking about the how like the brain layer stacks, and then Hugh was talking about how fish are basically psychic in terms of their sensual abilities. And he said that the more these layers start stacking, the more that ability gets kind of dimmed down. And then you get to the alien cortex, and it's like the least sensitive to those things out of all of the brain layers. Yeah.
Well, I think he mentioned it's about the lost connections between the different layers. And I think if my memory is good, and that there was, yes, this abilities that were repressed by some other connections that were made and other inhibitions that the upper layers are operating. And that goes back to the realm facing the alien cortex and defeating it or mastering it or whatever term you want to use in the line of what he talks about, I think. But these abilities are there, maybe they are dormant because they come out in flashes in some people who know suddenly something they don't understand where it's coming from. Sometimes we say, where's this coming from? And that is when there's a lapse of the alien cortex suddenly and something comes out, and that's where truth is very often, or our connection anyway with nature is there, and obliterated by the inhibition of the left cortical area.
Yeah, when it's not lording over everything else, magic can happen. Yeah, for sure.
But do you remember the video when Hugh was talking about when people get drunk, what happens? The lessening of the alien cortex then, and people get all huggy, and they start to become my body, and then they start to be also more sexual and more everything, and because you can see, of course, I'm not advocating that we should be drunk all the time, but what I mean is that it's a kind of an experiment to show you how much the grip of the alien cortex can be lessened under certain influences.
Oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of a joke I've been telling of like other friends on Discord. Um, so you all know bonobos, right? Like Hugh talked about bonobos. I found this like funny video that talked about, yeah, they pretty much just eat fruit and have sex all day. I'm like, that's perfect. Instead of communism, we can do communism, and we can call our ideology bonoboism.
Actually, that's funny. But you know that there is a plant, I think it's in Southeast Asia. There is a big plant that at a certain time per year produces an enormous fruit in the jungle. And that fruit rots gradually, very slowly, and ferments and produces that really powerful smell through the jungle. And the monkeys react to this smell and are attracted to it because they know that every year they're coming for this big party because they drink and eat all the product of that fermented fruit and get totally drunk. It's just so funny. I watched it, but they're not, they're falling on the floor. They're exactly behaving like somebody in the pub on a Saturday night. It's just hilarious. And how they know, they recognize the smell and they run to it and they all congregate. They do it together.
It's bar night in Eden.
Yeah. I mean, just what you were saying earlier, Sophie, about those abilities. And yeah, I think it's like a lot of things. If you become more specialized and highly skilled in one direction, it may be at the expense of abilities in another direction. Um, and that comes out in these various states of consciousness.
Yeah, that's what Ivan Illich was writing about, the dangers of specialization in every medicine, particularly, because that's when the book I was reading was about medicine, but specialization in everything has been the death of so much of our talents. It's just strangulating creativity, everything, and that's the trend of our alien cortex. Specialize.
Yeah, because you've got.
Yes.
Oh, go on, Torsten. It's all right.
No, what you said just reminded me of something else. So about IQ and personality types in the Jungian system, and reflecting or remembering back in school days when we had big exams and stuff. I kind of have a theory that when some people are doing much better at tests and exams and IQ tests and everything, it's more to do with how good is that person at focusing on the task on that paper in front of them, because I think most people in a normal class will be like thinking about the girls over there, or the boys over there, or the party last weekend or whatever. Whereas I, of course, will just focus on the math assignments on the paper. And yeah, I think it is like you said, Gary, that if you suppress some side of your person or intellect or something, then you can excel in others, and people can't do everything at once or be good at all things at once. And it's the same with with blind people. You often find that they excel in some non-seeing skill instead.
There's I was also thinking about it from the other end, which is the kind of loss of people with a general understanding. That we've developed such an enormous body of knowledge that specialization has become necessary. But that means that they're then left with very few people who have got an overview, because everybody's in their own sort of pigeonhole of specialization. And you can see that in the development of thought, probably since the time of around the 1600s, where a lot of those people who famous names like Newton and for instance, who now we tend to think of what great scientists they were and all the rest of it, but they were people who were were polymaths. They were highly educated in many different ways. A lot of cases they were quite a broad understanding. You could argue, I guess, that that's part of the reason why we're sort of running out of control at the moment, because everybody's attending very diligently to their narrow field of expertise, and they can't see out through the driver's window. They're in the carriage at the back somewhere doing their own specialised work, and there isn't anyone who's going from carriage to carriage and getting an idea of what each different specialisation is doing and trying to assemble it into some bigger picture. There's the kind of development of society becomes a bit like a rudderless ship. It can go very fast, but there's nobody there who's actually got any idea how to steer the thing.
What do you think about wrapping up? Because I know we want to
Yeah,
break.
I'm exhausted. Can we stop now?
Yeah. And we will, certainly, I'm sure, because this has been a really nice meeting again, and it's so nice to be able to be together like this once a week with people who are like, we all are insane because that brings back memories.
But Torstein, you're not going to write a beautiful equation if you're snoring.
I was just gonna say about Newton that, but he didn't have a girlfriend, and so didn't Nietzsche. So I think both of those guys were virgins, maybe polymaths, but also virgins.
Well, I don't know. I think Nietzsche was a little bit worse than that. I think he was an incel. At least that's the kind of attitude I get from some of his writing about women. But yeah.
Look, well, that's another interesting discussion too. I'm sure Lord Hugh could have done a lot with that. but I mean, in a lot in the a lot of the mystical traditions, of course, there's a lot of emphasis on the use of the sexual energies for spiritual, what's the word, elevation, or the sexual energies and the spiritual energies were considered to be closely related things. And I mean, I don't know, it might be simplistic to argue that great minds like the ones you were just referring to may not have been so great um, if they had expended their energies in other ways.
Well, in the
I know.
witches in Europe, they never married, and they sometimes had sex,
Mm,
sometimes had a child, rarely, and they usually brought it up with another witch, and they usually lived sometimes with another witch or another woman, but they never had a regular relationship with a man or in a house. They said that it was
mm,
because for their powers to unfold, they shouldn't be, well, they wouldn't be, involved in some regular uh, either sexual or emotional activity with a male. So I think I remember Lord Shu was also talking about that with in the realm of meditation and attaining enlightenment, that there was a lot of celibacy going on there, sort of saving on the Kundalini kind of thing. Do you know? I don't know if you remember that.
um, well, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I think this too is what lies behind the remnants of that still linger in religions like Roman Catholicism and some of the other ones where there's a vow of celibacy, or it's really chastity as well, I guess. I mean, people conflate the two words, but um, uh, that I don't think they've got a clue why they have that necessity for that vow now. That it's obviously I think a remnant, a leftover of a much earlier pagan, probably, understandings of human energetic systems, which transferred into the more recent religions, and then that they don't actually understand why they've ended up with it, but that they've made up all sorts of reasons, of course. Um, and so it still lingers. It's this kind of appendage of a distant understanding that's now been lost. So we're probably should we end now? Otherwise, we'll never get away from here. Um, doesn't India have a third gender for these monk types? I'm not sure. Yes, just celibacy is not being married, and chastity is not engaging in sexual activity. As far as I know, that's the distinction between the two of them. But people get them confused. So yeah, will we have half a minute of silence unless anyone else has got something to say?
Oh, I better not, or it'll go on for another 20 minutes.
All right, so we'll just start now. Okay, well, thanks everybody
Thanks,
for
everyone.
contributing. Yep, and we will we'll look forward to the next exciting episode, I
Yes,
guess.
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
George.
Okay,
George on Wednesday, actually, if you can be there.
it's
Mm.
Wednesday, is it all?
Can we try to bring some smells in next episode?
Well, I mean, some examples, and just use our imaginations, which is something we wanted to exercise too. So yeah.
Yeah, we could bring like incense and peaches and stuff.
Mm.
Or
Mm.
maybe if
And a
everyone not uses the shower for a week, then we could see if we could notice on the next stream.
Oh, I don't know. My
Yeah.
nose is pretty good. I could tell instantly if I start stinking.
Thank you again, everyone, for a lovely moment of insanity shared together.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye then.
Bye.
Be
Bye-bye.
safe.